Alright, so this is lesson 12.1 in intermediate algebra, circles. And before we start with circles, we are going to do some things with triangles first. So let's go ahead and put a triangle point. Let's put one here, and one here. Alright, and we'll draw a triangle. Alright, so if you remember, Pythagorean says a squared, which basically means the length of one of the triangles, why is that we're not writing, plus b squared equals c squared. Alright, so that being the case, a is any of either of these sides. C is always the longest side, the hypotenuse. Always, always, always. Doesn't really matter where it is. The longest side is always C. Alright, and if you remember, when you did Pythagorean, if this was 3 and this was 2, you would take 3 squared plus 2 squared equals c squared, so you'd have 9. Then you take the square root of both sides, and c equals the square root of 13. Okay, so the square root of 13 is that length. Alright, so let's look at the actual side of these triangles. This particular triangle, the bottom, from here to here is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And the length from here to here is 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so that's one of the ways of finding out how long the sides are. Another way of doing it, which is going to be the preferred way, is to look at each one of these points. This is the point -3, 2. This is the point 4, 2. And this top one is the point 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Alright. Now if I want to know how far it is from here to here, that's the x direction, right? Left to right is x. I take the x value here and the x value here, and I take the difference between those. Okay, so I take -3 minus 4 equals -7, and then I always make that positive. Always, always, always your answer is going to be positive. So that's going to be 7. When I want to find this distance, I use my y value, so I use my 6 and my 2. So I take the difference between a 6 and a 2, and I get 4. I could have done 2 minus 6 and also got -4, but remember, we can't have a negative, so I would have changed that to a positive. Alright, so that brings up a formula that you have used in the past, long time ago probably, but you have used it, and it's called the distance formula. And the distance formula looks like this. The distance from here to here. So if I want the distance between that point and that point, it is equal to square root of one of the x's minus the other one squared plus one of the y's minus the other one squared. Okay? So if I want this distance right here, that's what this d represents, I am going to take the square root of my x's, this one and this one, -3 minus 4, or I could have written it as 4 minus negative 3, doesn't really matter, plus, then my y is 2 and 6. Okay, so that gives me the square root of negative 3 minus 4 is negative 7. And this is going to be negative 4. Oh, goodness. Okay, and let's move this up. So d equals the square root of 49 plus 16. So d equals the square root of 49, 59, 69, 65. Okay, so that ends up being the distance of, and let me get that back down here, my hypotenuse right there, square root of 65, or around 8-ish, something like that. Okay, so what happens with that distance formula equals the square root, go ahead and put it up here. What happens with it is then I don't have to actually graph the triangle to find out what the distance is. So for example, example 1 says we've got 2 points, 3, 5, and 2, negative 1. And they want to know how far it is between those points. Well, we get d equals the square root of one of the x's minus the other x, one of the y's minus the other y. Okay, and notice, if I made this 3 an x 2, or I made it first, then this 5 has to be first here. You can't put this 3 as first here, and the negative 1 is your y first here. They have to be 3 used here, the 5 has to be used there. Okay? Alright, and then we just keep going. So that would be 1 squared plus 5 minus negative 1 is the same as 5 plus 1, so that's 6 squared. So that gives me d equals the square root of 1 plus 36, which equals the square root of 37. So the distance between those 2 points is the square root of 37. Alright, let's keep going here and make a little bit of a difference with what we're doing. Okay, so in this one, they're giving you 2 points, x, 5, and the other point is 3, 4. So we don't even know where this point is, because you have to know the x value to know where the point is. But we know the length, we know the distance is the square root of 2. So what we're looking for is what is the x value that will give us a distance between these 2 points of the square root of 2. Alright, so we use our formula again. Okay, now let's put in what we know. Okay, I'm just going to leave that first part alone for right now. Or, in fact, I can just get rid of this 2 because 1 times 1 is 1. Okay, so I get that. Okay, so one of the things I want you to notice, this 2 is under a radical, so everything on this side is under a radical, everything on this side is under a radical. When that's the case, and this is very important, you can take the radicals off. Okay? If everything is under a radical on one side and on the other, you can just take it off. Alright, so let's go ahead and do FOIL. So we've got x squared minus 6x plus 9 plus 1. Okay, so this becomes let's move this 2 over here so we can set it equal to 0. Because in order to solve this, we have to be able to set it equal to 0. Okay, so I just moved this over and just put this equal to 0 instead of 0 over here. I just moved it so it's over here is all I did, nothing weird. Okay, so what are we going to do with that? Well, we're going to factor it into two binomials. X4 to negative, oh, that one has to be negative 2, doesn't it? In order to multiply negative 4 times negative 2 to get positive 8 and add to get negative 6. So that means that my x value that I was looking for is going to be either 4 or 2. Okay? Because it doesn't really matter which one, because what we're saying then is in the original equation, remember we had two coordinates, x5 and 3, 4. Okay, so if we have our xy axis and we're over 3 and up 4 for this point, this other point is somewhere over left or right x, but up it's somewhere along this line of y equals 5. Okay, if it is, then it could either be here, and this distance is the square root of 2, or it could be here, and the distance can be the square root of 2 because they gave us the distance. So we're looking for the point that is the square root of 2 away from that point right there. So we put that point right there, 3, 4, and the only options we have that are on 5, because that's what they told us here, is the y value is up 5, is that it's going to be over up or over up. So it'll be the square root of 2. So there's two answers there. Alright, so that's it for the triangle part, and in this next video we're going to use, we're going to get into circles.